So, good morning once again, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Beverly. For those who don't know me, I'll just share my video for a minute or two so that all of you can get to know me. Can you see my video? My camera, sorry. Yeah, yeah. So, I've been in HR for 6 years now, and I've been doing recruitment, talent acquisition, and I've also been working with others who are in the same space. So today we have this session of preparing for interviews because we have very many people who are qualified out there, but what gets them the job is how they perform during the interviews. So there was a need, and that's why we are doing this session today. I hope it's going to be very, very interactive because the topic is very broad, and there are some areas that we may not cover today unless you ask a question. So I'm encouraging us to ask as many questions as possible in the chat, and even when if you decide to unmute, so that at least you can cover 360 of what interview preparation should look like. Yeah, so as long as you're in the employment market, it's important to know that interviews are part and parcel of your career life. Yeah, unless you plan to work with one employer until your retirement, and even if you decide to work with one employer, in between you'll need a promotion and it will still require an interview. Yeah, so it's a skill that you can develop once, and then it's going to be useful for the rest of your career life. Yeah. So today we'll just look at the course expectations, the training expectations as they were there on the poster. The first one is supposed to be uh, strategic interview preparation techniques for success. According to our poster, the first thing is supposed to be strategic interview preparation techniques. Yeah. So, just like we've said, the interview is going to be part and parcel of our career life. So, it's you to understand the level that you are in your career, and then to like have a development plan. You need to have a development plan of how your career is going, because of course, at some point, you'll be required to move up the corporate ladder or to increase your responsibility. So, what you can do in order to prepare for this time when it comes, you can get job descriptions for the next position in your career. Okay, for example, if right now I am an assistant. Next, I know, of course, I'm going to be an officer. It doesn't matter if it's going to be within my company or in another company, or even if it's going to be my personal business. The next skill that I need to have is the skill required of an officer, because that one now is now a step higher in the corporate ladder. So what you can do, uh, go online, research for job descriptions for the position that you should go to next. Yeah, so if I'm a HR assistant, I look for job descriptions for HR officer, and there are very many. They're there in the job adverts. If you get a job advert, they will outline the responsibilities that they want. So if you get like 15 to 20 adverts, you're going to get the common thing that recruiters are looking for for a HR officer. And then now, once you get at least 80% of recruiters will have common things in those job advertisements or job descriptions, you begin to develop yourself along those lines. And you can do that by doing mock interviews. You can do mock interviews way before you're even invited for an interview, way before you even start looking for a new job, because, like we've said, a skill that gets developed with time. It doesn't work like that. Like today, you've been invited for an interview, and you want to practice for the interview today. That one will make you more nervous, because with each preparation, you're going to discover there's something you're missing out on, or there's something you're not saying correctly, or you're even cramming answers from the internet, and perhaps you won't even have that time to prepare. Yeah, because maybe the invite will find you in the middle of something else, and that thing will be an urgent matter, and you won't get time to prepare for your interview. The opportunity will have you will have the opportunity, but you won't be prepared for it. And yeah, that's how most people fail interviews. So you can do mock interviews. Mock interviews are basically just you interviewing someone else interviewing you. In a practice, you just practice being interviewed or interviewing someone. That person doesn't have to be a HR person or even someone in careers. It just needs to be someone who is available, who can help you, because yeah, they can tell you, like, here it looks they can give you what you're doing, the mistakes that you're doing. Sorry. Yeah. So for mock interviews, you you get a score sheet online. No, okay, not sorry, not a score sheet. For mock interviews, like I've said, you just interview someone for the position that you yourself want, because while you're doing that, you're going to get the good things that they do, and they're going to be a plus for you. Like, you're going to pick things that are going to enhance your competitiveness. And sometimes you can even pick wrong things that they're doing, that you won't do now during your next interview. Okay. So for example, if you're interviewing people, let's say, Michelle, you're interviewing people for casework. You're interviewing, let's say, 5 people, and one of them comes late, one of them comes without their physical documents, one of them doesn't know what casework is about. You see, at the back of the mind, you're the recruiter. So, like, you're the inside person. You can see the wrong things candidates are doing. And now you'll be able to know, now when I'm invited for such an interview, these are definitely the things I don't want to do, because they're what makes people to fail interviews. Yeah. So the the takeaway that we have there is that we should be doing mock interviews. Jose, would you like to add something?
No, okay. Good morning, guys, and thank you for joining. So, on the matters mock interviews, you should also take advantage. I'm sure, even if you, for those who are not HR professionals, and even the HR professionals, there's always someone above your level, or someone who has more experience than you. So it would be beneficial for you to uh, maybe get in contact with this person. For example, if I was maybe a manager, a HR manager in a certain organization, and you know me professionally, you can ask me to maybe do a mock interview for you as part of a coaching session. So you do interview coaching. So we go through. We assume that it's a real interview, and we go through the interview process, and then at the end we assess and evaluate how you've performed. So that way will also go a long way in assisting you build that confidence. The good thing is, if we take it very seriously, by the time you're getting to a real interview, all the nerves will be gone. You'll be so relaxed when it comes to the interview, because you know you've prepared very thoroughly for that interview. So mock interviews go a long way. It's just like sports. When you prepare for a certain sport for a long time, then when you get to the day of the competition, in most cases, it becomes a bit simpler. So the same case with interviews. If you prepare as much as possible, then you might find it a bit easier when it comes to handling the interview. And in most cases, I tell people it's never a do or die, because the moment you make it in your mind that it's a do or die, then the nerves will set in. You'll always feel like, oh, have I answered that question correctly? No. And by the time you're getting to the next question, you're already so afraid that you answered the first question wrongly. So you end up affecting how you approach the entire interview. So let's not have it as a do or die. The best thing to do to avoid all this is prepare early, even if it means you sitting alone in a room and just going through some interview questions and trying to upgrade your knowledge, because interviews are all about you applied for a job, you are called for the job because they feel whatever CV you sent in fits the criteria. The moment you get to the interview, all they're trying to find out to do is reconcile what you sent and the person. So if the person does not match whatever was sent, then most likely you won't get the role. But if the person even surpasses what the interviewer thought, then most likely you'll get the role. So it's just about finding that balance. Back to you, Beverly.
Yes, thank you, Hosea, for that. Yeah, so mock, yeah, like we've said, mock interviews are very important and they're vital to our, like us getting that skill of interview, of acing interviews. Okay. Next, we are supposed to talk about mastering interview etiquette and body language. So this one goes even from the onset, from the time you start applying for that job. We have interview etiquette because the words that you used, they can either show like you have mastery of the specific industry you're trying to apply in. They show that you're respectful. They show that like you know what you want. They show that you're someone who is professional, and the recruiter is able to start like the recruiter is able to start sieving sieving people just from the way how they present themselves, right from there, applying for the job, and even interview etiquette, body language, how they are dressed, and how they package themselves. And that is part of an interview as well, how someone is dressed, how they package themselves, because an interview doesn't just need your technical skills. All the technical skills were already highlighted in the CV, and everyone who makes it to the interview has the same technical skill as you. So there are other differentiators that are going to make you more competitive. One of them is your etiquette, your language, and how you present yourself during the interview. So I've come across a scenario where some candidates use the wrong etiquette, they use the wrong language. Yeah, you ask a question, and the next thing the candidate, instead of answering the question and even upselling their skills, the candidate begins to say things like, uh, that thing you've just asked me, I don't know anything about it. Like they start using negative words to describe their abilities. Yeah. So communication, it will go in there. It's part of etiquette, and body language, because the recruiter also is able to read your nonverbal communication. If you're bored, the recruiter will see. If you're surprised, if they ask you a question and it throws you off the balance, the recruiter will see. and they need someone who is as authentic as possible. And the recruitment process, it's like a disqualification process, because more people applied for the job. They started disqualifying. This one you're not taking because of this. This one you're not taking because of this. Okay, now we have a short list. Now during that interview, it's you to give them a reason, either to retain you or to disqualify you as well, because the recruiter wants to remain with just one candidate that is required to fit in the role. Yeah. So next, I'm going to share with you an interview score sheet, a sample of an interview score sheet that recruiters use. Yeah, because recruiters also have they also have their policies. They also have the way they do their things, and they recruit for very many positions. Yeah, because you find an organization has one recruitment team which recruits for all. It recruits across, yeah, the organization. So they engage in very many recruitments, not just the position you have applied for. Yeah, so they use score sheets. I'll share with you a sample, and if you can master the how the score sheet is structured, then you can be able to predict what the recruiter is going to ask. You can be able to predict some questions, and you'll be able to know, like, this time we have moved from this section of the interview to this section of the interview. So it's guided, like you're well informed, and you can be able to anticipate the what the recruiter requires from you. So uh, can you be able to see my screen? I'm sharing interview score sheet. This one, this one is from us at Denidel. So different companies have different score sheets. Let's say for entry level, they could be having one particular score sheet, for mid level, and then for senior level, because they look at different things per level in the organization. So this one is a sample of a score sheet. Can you be able to see the screen? Just a thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, it will have your, of course, candidate's name, the position applied, interviewer's position. Yes. And then they'll now begin to score you. Okay. So like the
Just a moment, Beverly. Christine, you raised your hand.
I can't see the screen.
uh I don't know. Does everyone else see the screen?
Yeah, we're able to view,
You
although you
can
can
see.
maximize it a
You're able
bit.
to view. She can zoom.
You
Yeah, I'm
can,
able to
Uh
see.
let me try and zoom.
Christine, you're not seeing it entirely. Christine, okay, I think we
Okay.
lost
Uh
her.
Christine, maybe you can mute.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So maybe we can mute. There's someone on the call who, okay. So let me try and zoom this thing. Now, can you see? Ah, sorry.
Yes, you can make it a bit smaller though, so that the entire page can be viewed. That's fine. I think that's fine.
Uh, okay. Yeah. So the first part um, is your personal motivation. Like, this is a template that is used by recruiters in all industries. So you can see even the first part is not like your technical area. your technical area. The first part is your personal motivation, and this section, it looks at your enthusiasm about the job, how you conduct yourself, your demeanor, like how you present yourself. Yeah, they check things like to do with your confidence. Yeah, things like how did you bring your documents in a nice folder. Yeah, such simple things. They look at such simple things. Of course, it's not like something that is very wrong if you don't uh, bring your documents in a nice folder, but you can see the recruiter has scores here that they are scoring you against. Yeah. So for example, if someone has come and they're very smartly dressed, they have their documents in soft copy, in hard copy, they came on time, then I'll be motivated to give them a 5. Yeah. The next person comes, they've done uh 2 or 3 of what number 1 did. I give them a 3, I give them a 2. And then at last, we'll have the totals. We'll have the totals down there. So this is done for each and every candidate, and now the recruiters will sit down during the deliberation stage, and they're going to say, like, let's take everyone who has 80% and above. So if these things that make up the total, if you didn't pass, then you could be a good person technically, but now they're going to use your score, your overall score in the score sheet. Yeah. And these score sheets are also audited with time, so they can't say, okay, so and so scored 0 in personal motivation, 0 in customer focus, but their technical ability is 5. Because they're not just looking for someone who is good, who is coming to do the job. They're look a person who will fit in their organization. Okay, so we will share with you this score sheet for your practice later. Okay, so most questions asked to gauge your personal motivation, there could be even a question like, tell us about yourself. And this is the part where you can use to drive the interview to the direction that you want it to go. Yeah, because now you've been given an opportunity, you give an overview of your educational and work experience. And then if you have things like gaps in the CV, you can use this opportunity to explain. You can use this opportunity to explain like how you as a person, you're going to be the perfect match for them. And the recruiters will build up on what you have said during that while you're answering that question of tell us about yourself, because they will have follow-up questions. So if you want them to ask you, if you want them to, it's you to tell them something that they'll use to ask the follow-up questions, and then the direction of the interview will go. Like you'll be able to, it will now be a conversation with them, as opposed to you waiting for them to ask you a question, you answer the question, you wait for the next question, and then you answer like that. It's not a question and answer session. It's you to spark off the conversation. Okay. Yeah. So like this, like we've said, this is just a sample. The first one will have uh, a situation where your personal motivation positively influenced your work. An example of a challenging task you approached with enthusiasm. Yeah. This one, it just shows how your personal motivation level is. Yeah, then next we are going to have understanding of the role. This one is going to gauge your technical ability. And it's related now to the actual job that you'll be doing. It's related to your industry and the what you learned in school and the actual job that you're coming to do. So you have to have done your homework very well. You have to understand what is going on, the current issues in your industry. You have to understand the know-how. If they ask you a question like those in HR, most times we are usually asked the labor laws, we are usually asked the recruitment process, things like workplace registration process. Yeah, these things should be at your fingertips, at least because you have already gone to school and you have even worked in different places, maybe. Then the technical ability, that is an area that you can score even all the marks. Okay. Yeah. So you can see like question, how do you stay updated on industry trends and apply that knowledge in your work? Yeah. So the second section, it's going to deal with everything that is related to your industry and to the job that you're applying for. Next is going to be customer focus. All organizations are looking to get profits or to grow revenue for their company. Yeah. So besides you uh being, let's say, working, let's say for example, working as a doctor, they also need to know if you are a pro customer, because it's the customer which brings the business to the organization. Everyone must have at least a level of skill that is able to take care of customers within the organization. So this one you will always be tested. Customer focus, you'll always be tested in any interview that you go. Next, teamwork. Yeah, questions around teamwork. Let's say how you worked as a team, how you led a team, how you dealt with a difficult team member. Yeah, how do you come up with a team? Such like things. Yeah, this is the ideal structure of an interview score sheet. And then performance management. Yeah, so this score sheet, it shows that for you to be recruited into an organization, you have to be a holistic person fit to the organization. Yeah, not just a technical expert in your area. Because like you've seen, the technical ability is taking like even less than a third of the interview score sheet. Next, we have business acumen. Now, this one, uh, you'll have to have researched about that company, the industry in which it deals in, and you have the knowledge that is sufficient to like to be onboarded into the company, because different companies are doing different things across different industries, and most of the time people already have a level of knowledge in what their business deals in, who their clients could be. Yeah, yeah, such like things. So any interview that you're invited for, you now have to do your research completely about the business. Yeah. So um, we have also the part for general questions. This could be like salary, like what is your expected salary? It could be things like how soon are you available to start working? Yeah. And at that point, they could also ask you to ask if you have any question, yeah, for them, for the panelists. Yeah. So this is it's a complete structure of an interview score sheet. And with every like stage, with every step, you're able to know, okay, now we are done with personal motivation. Now we are moving to technical. Yeah. After technical, now you can feel more relaxed, yeah, as a candidate, because next is just customer focus, teamwork, and performance management and business acumen. Yeah, then next after that, um, You'll even see the recruiters now relaxing, maybe putting their pen down to ask you now things like salary, your salary expectation, how soon you're available to start. And the next is the questions. Yeah, you need to have prepared questions that are going to give you more information about the role, give you more information about the company. Yeah, so if you can even ask a follow-up question once they answer you the first question that you'll have asked, but um, don't make it a very long, just make it brief, so that, because now that is typically the end of an interview. If you see them asking you to ask them a question, you just know that you have come to the end of the interview. Yeah. Do you have questions? I can't see the chat.
There's one question.
Yeah.
What is the best answer if asked how long it will take me to start working?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Regina, for that question. We have some adverts that usually write like the expected starting date for this position is this date. If that's the kind of advert you came across, then yeah, you just tell them, yeah, I saw the advert, it needs someone to start working on this date. Yeah, so I'm available. And then this other one, you can just be honest. uh, if you need to give a notice, you tell them, I can give a note. I have a notice period of this duration that I need to give to my employer, but I can utilize my leave days for the notice period. So I'm flexible. Let me know when you need me to join so that I can work with my employer and then I can get back to you. Yeah. So just show openness and be authentic, and also don't like shoot yourself in the foot by saying I'm available to join immediately, I can even start work today. Yeah, because probably the recruiters, they also need time to go and deliberate to get the best candidate before before they get back to you with if you were successful or not in the interview. Yeah, so give them time. Yeah, let them know that you're supposed to give a notice period, and that can be worked on because you have your leave days. Yeah, so that they know that if we need this person to come, they are able to come. They know that you have given them that leeway to decide like this person can join at this date. Regina, does that answer your question? There's no specific answer like I can join in 1 month, because maybe they need someone to join in 2 weeks. And you know very well that you don't have a job. So why tell them you need a month when you can join in a week? Yeah, just tell them like now I'm open for the opportunity. So you let me know when I can start. Yeah, but don't say you can start immediately. Yeah. There's a
Okay.
time I told a recruiter that I can even start the job right now. So and I lost that interview, by the way. It was, yeah, at Ukwala supermarket. I told the recruiter I don't even want to go home. Let me just start right now. Yeah. Yeah. Jose, you wanted to add
That's
something?
an interesting one, Beverly.
Yeah.
Because, okay, just to add on it, when you show that kind of desperation, it even brings in more questions from the interviewer. Although they may not ask you, they may wonder, how comes you are in such a hurry to join? It's like you are not committed doing any other thing that needs you to rearrange yourself to start working. So let's, as much as you need the job, never show that you are that desperate for the job. Because the moment you show that you are that desperate for the job, it always puts you in a wrong situation. So like Beverly's situation, most likely they felt that you are very desperate for that opportunity. Yes, maybe a while back, people would have looked at that as being enthusiastic about the job, but right now you would be looked at as very desperate. So let's avoid that desperation. Then I'm seeing Duncan. What are the do's and don'ts during an interview? I would there are very many, but I'll try and summarize. Some of the things that you need to do is, of course, show up on time. Always try and be there on time. If it's a place that you don't know, ensure that you get there maybe 1 hour or 30 minutes, because you never know, traffic might delay you. So you'd rather be there early. You should be polite to everyone you meet. I know that goes without saying, but now during the interview, some of the things that you don't do is contradict yourself. So you might find that you already put out a statement stating something like, let's say, I'm good at Excel, or I'm good at ERP systems. But when we go back to your CV, you've never done anything to do with ERP, or when you are tasked to explain how you used an ERP system, you cannot explain. Or another way you might contradict yourself is maybe you put out a statement that totally contradicts with even your personality. The other thing that you don't do is do not badmouth your former employer. That one I can tell you for free, that one will totally knock you out of the interview. Even if you left the employer because they were not paying you, never let that come into this particular interview. Never show that you are annoyed about that. I'll give you an example. I was I think a month ago, I was interviewing someone for a procurement manager role. And it's someone that I knew, but didn't know this other side of this other side. So they had left an organization that had not paid them for a while. And I think he left very annoyed. And because he was in procurement and the environment wasn't good, because you have a back and forth with suppliers because the organization has not paid suppliers, so you become stressed. So he came with that stress into that interview, bad mouthing the former colleagues because he was at procurement manager level, bad mouthing the former colleagues that even the team I was working with are very poor. They just receive kickbacks, they do that. Then we were very surprised because that totally changed the perspective of the interview process. You can imagine you are being interviewed for a position that requires you to be sober. It requires you to be calm. It requires you to be strategic. But now you are on the complaining table about your former employer. So the first, you should never talk ill of your former employer. That one, if whatever they did to you, just find out a nice way of just, even if it means you saying that you left because you want career growth. Yeah. You just, because the moment you start talking ill, you open up yourself to many more questions. And these questions might not necessarily be favoring you. So that is another thing that I've found many interviewees having an issue with. And then there's another thing called too much information, still borders around the same area. So do not give out too much information. You can imagine that you are interviewing for a HR position that requires that as a HR, you should be very confidential, and any other professional, you should be very confidential. But now, when you get to the interview, as much as you're talking about your achievements, you don't talk about the exact numbers. You can't even give percentages. Or if you're asked a question, let's give me an example of a situation where you had to deal with a difficult disciplinary process. Then you are there even giving names that there was this staff called so and so at this organization. Already you are showing that you are not a confidential person. You'd rather, the best way to approach it is to say, without naming names, there's a certain organization I worked for, this was the situation, and this is how we handled it. So that way you've uh, shown that you're very confidential in how you're handling situations. Those are just some of the areas that I would totally that I've found many candidates making mistakes. That is to you, Duncan. I hope that has given you a brief. And then, of course, ensure that you ask questions. And when you're asking questions, when you're given an opportunity to ask questions, don't ask questions that only favor you. Like, after I join, will I get a salary increment? Will I be promoted? I normally think that the point of negotiations for benefits and salaries is after you've gotten the job. So once you're told you're successful and they give you an offer, that is the point where you can now negotiate further. Of course, you stated what you would want at the beginning, but you can negotiate further at that point. But when you're given an opportunity to ask a question, you need to ask a question like, what are the pain points that you are experiencing in this particular role that you would be looking for the next holder of this role to address. So that one will totally give a different shift in terms of what this person wants to come in and solve a problem for us, rather than just thinking of themselves. They want to understand how they can help the organization. Another question you might ask is maybe, of course, how soon would you want the person to be available for this role? It's a average question to ask, but ensure that the questions you ask are entirely forward thinking and basically targeted at the employer or the recruiter, to see that your interest in the role is not just for yourself, but also to bring an impact to the organization. That's just a brief. I know it's a lot, but Duncan, I hope that has helped. Okay, I would think so. Then we have Vivian. What is the relationship between current salary and expected one? I don't know in what angle you are going for this particular one, but in most cases, it's just to gauge whether you are within the organization's budget. And if you ask me, I normally ask, you find a recruiter asks this question, maybe, what is your expected salary? And uh, someone tells you, it gives you the generic answers that, it's your organization that will decide, blah, blah, blah. I personally don't agree with that, because that is something generic that everyone has read on the internet. You should be authentic. You should know your value, and you should have done a bit of research to understand for this particular role, what would be the the salary range for this particular role, and then look at your qualifications and try and give even a range. You can say, I would be looking for a figure between this and this. But the moment you find that you're interviewing someone and they tell you, you'll just give me what you'll give me. So you wonder whether they have any they value themselves. So you should always have a figure in mind, because if, let's say, you're earning 70 and what we are offering you is 50, would you still take it? That is the question you need to ask yourself. So you should have a figure that, if I'm giving anything below this, I won't take it. So my salary expectations are this, so that you don't also waste your time going to negotiate it. You are way above the organization's salary range. So for this particular one, it's just to assist the organization to assess whether you are within their budget and whether you are flexible enough to fit in their budget. And in most cases, ensure that you can just always add that it is flexible, that yes, this is your range, but you are open to negotiations. Then
That
Fine. Yes, go ahead, Vivian.
excuse me,
Yes,
but you just said um you're supposed to be confidential, right?
yes.
My current salary is a payslip from my current employer, right? And in
Mm-hmm.
this case, I'm interviewing for a future employer, potential employer
Mm-hmm.
rather.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you ask me about my current salary? What is the relationship between my current employer and my potential employer? Why? Because some companies will even ask you for you're supposed to show up with a pay slip. Why should I give my pay slip? It's a document from another company. It's confidential from that company.
Yes,
That
yes.
was my question. The relationship, why
Okay.
a recruiter will ask for my current payslip, yet my focus is my potential employer. Why don't we discuss the figure from the potential employer? If I'm way too above the range,
Mm-hmm.
then cut me off. Because of course nobody will settle for a figure less, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Also, if you read about as an HR, go back to this act about privacy. There's
Mm-hmm.
an act. And if you ask me for this current salary, some recruiters will ask for that payslip. That document is private from the other company. So how do I navigate through that? Like when I'm showing up for an interview and you ask me as a recruiter about my current salary, why is it of concern yet we are focused on potential employer? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. So, this is more of something that has been happening in the industry, whereby you find that organizations ask for the. Okay, let me just be blunt about it. Some organizations use these interviews also as a benchmark. So yes, it is not right, but it is something that is happening in the industry whereby they would ask you for your current salary. So the best way to go about it would be give them a range that, okay, I am not at liberty to share this because of the agreements I have with my current employer, but this is the range, so that you can give them a range, or you can also decline to share. Or, although in my experience, sadly, that is how things are. You'll find that someone, maybe the recruiter, might use that kind of bias against you. They might feel offended. It is not right. I'm not saying it's right, but that is what has happened. I know of someone who refused to share their pay slip, and that is how one of the reasons maybe that was used to deny them the opportunity. But you still are at liberty to not share the document. You can tell them the best I can do is maybe share with you a range, because in some instances you find organizations are not some organizations are not even recruiting. They're just having a job posted, or as much as they're recruiting. I'll give you an example. There's a client of mine who was interviewing for a bank, and he was working in another bank. So this bank did not call him for the interview to give him an opportunity, but they, even in the interview, they did not go to the technical aspects of the job. They were more interested in the benefits. So it means this uh, panel was more interested in knowing what are the other benefits that this competitor of ours is offering that we might as well implement. So some organizations use that as a fishing expedition to just learn about other organizations, but we are at liberty to deny them this opportunity to get this information, although at a risk of bias. So I'm in agreement that it's not right to share, but in some instances, you can find a way of not coming out very boldly that you're not sharing, but you just come out and in a nice way, so that you're not allowed to share. But the best you can do is give them a range that you yourself are looking for. So that one would be a better way of going about it. Because if you come out very boldly, also there is bias. Every human being has a bias side, their biased side. That in most cases it's subconscious, where you don't know even it's a bias, but it is a bias for sure. So I don't know whether, Vivian, that answers you. Yes, it's not right, but that is what is happening within the industry, whereby you're asked for this, and it is not, you are not required to send your pay slip. That is not a requirement. But
Actually,
yes.
they'll never tell you to send because they know it's illegal. They know there's an act of data protection act, but they'll tell you you come with that pay slip. So I usually wonder, why are we discussing my salary? Because honestly, from
But
a point of money,
in most cases, you'd find it's also a lack of trust.
which trust?
As in, let
Mm.
me tell you, it's a lack of trust from the person recruiting, whereby they feel you should show them what you are earning, so that you don't maybe you don't quote quite above what, so that they can just give you slightly above what you are earning,
Which is
which is
wrong.
not
Are
right.
you paying me
Yes,
my worth?
which is not right. I still agree. I still agree. But that is
I
what.
always feel, Daniel, I always feel like,
Mm,
for me, my experience with the interviews, I'll answer all the other questions properly. But when we get to the answer, the question of salary, negotiating, what is your expected salary, that question makes me feel like all interviewers, their focal point is around, like, salary is the focal point. You don't want to pay me my worth. At the same time, you want me to serve you more, but you want to pay me for less. Kwani, which contracts do you enter with these companies that anyway, at the end of the day, it's reducing costs?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, they're trying to see what balances. But you can still approach that question, but still in an intelligent way, where you are not hurting your chances, and also you are not hurting your chances, and you are not compromising in what you believe. So just find a balance between the two. It's, in most cases, it's how you say it, rather than what you say. Because if you find a nice way of putting it out, if you just say something like, you are not allowed to share your documents, or you are not privy to them because they're system generated and they're only on the system, you just find a nice way of bringing it out, so that they don't feel that you're being arrogant, not sharing it with them and inviting in that bias. So you just find a balance, not to hurt your chances and also not to compromise on yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I've seen a hand. I think it's Paul.
Yeah, there's a hand from Paul.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I still want to argue on the issue of sharing payslip. I mean, sorry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
One day I missed a chance simply because I refused to share the payslip for them to give me what they want. And the moment I entered the organization, of which I won't mention which was it, the entry point was human resource manager. We were two. So the other colleague got around 100K, and then me, because I used to share my payslip, I was given 70. So I came to ask the head of HR. The entry point for all of us were human resource assistant. How comes this particular person is getting 100 and me, I'm getting 70? So I don't know what the recruiters used to do with the people's payslip in order for them to judge what they need to pay me. As per the last argument person who was arguing about the payslip, you use payslip to judge what you want to give somebody vis-a-vis what this particular person is coming to offer to the organization. Trust me, I didn't work at that organization even a month because I felt like it is a kind of a discrimination. Because if you have a job group and you have a salary structure, then it means all people that are coming in a different entry levels, they have their different entry salary. But when we are using the slip of my former employer to judge what you're going to give me, then I feel like it is something that some of the employer or some of the recruiters are using to discriminate us. I don't know how you guys are going to elaborate on that.
And rightly so, it's not right. And for me, it's commendable that you left the organization, because if that is the case, the question I normally ask myself is, if you have a budget and the entry point is, let's say, 100, as you stated, 100,000, if that is the entry point for that job, why not give this person their worth? Because you might say that you're trying to save as a HR professional, but if this person is not happy, they'll come there for a month and disappear, and then you're back recruiting again. So who has lost? Because this person has gotten salary for that month, and most likely they did not work or they were not productive. So we need to look at it from the point of fairness, and just ensuring that we are more strategic, because reducing cost shouldn't be at the expense of some fairness, because you already, that is not fair, because you are given a different entry point as opposed to your colleague who shared their salary. And I would sadly, I would say that is a very wrong way of approaching recruitment as a HR professional. That is a very wrong way of going about it. So I think for that, I can end it at that point, because it is not professional at all that you would do that. That because someone refused to share a pay slip is the reason that you are victimizing this individual. So the best thing we can do as HR people is to improve on that, and try and totally discourage such kind of behavior, because it's very unprofessional. Because at the end, it will impact even the perspective people have about the organization, that if you don't share your pay slip, that is, then you won't be able to get a job with that particular company, which already shows you that that company is wrong, because it has a very wrong culture, especially if that is coming from HR. So sorry for that, Paul, but I hope you got a better place. Then I hope.
I'm still looking for a better.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
That is well noted.
Yes.
And I know we also have recruiters here who will be able to assist as we continue with the conversations.
I have a question, please.
Yes, Vivian.
Why don't you display the figure to just make the situation easier, rather than the whole situation being convoluted? Why don't you just display the figure so that I can know, is it what I'm worth? Because what we studied back in HR is pay equal salary for work done, right? So why don't you just display the figure? If it's worth for me and it's attractive to me, I apply for the job. If it's not, I stay away. Why is it difficult especially where companies recruit on their own, unlike companies that will use recruiters, companies that recruit directly? Why don't you display the figure? If it's attractive to me, well and good. If it's not, let me stay away. Why not display it?
Some organizations do display, but also remember, this is a sort of competitive advantage, because if I'm in the same industry,
Yes.
and you can't share openly within, let's say you share the salaries all over, because assume that I'm recruiting for, let's say, senior leadership positions like 10, and I've posted all the salaries there. The likelihood that my competitor already knows what I'm paying is very high. So the best approach, and also it's confidential, because that is company data. So, and also you don't want to attract the wrong people, because if someone is just coming for the salary, then that is not the right person to have, in my opinion. So what organizations do is they advertise for the position. Then At point of interview is when they let you know, okay, this position is at this level in terms of salary, because you've already indicated your expected salary when you applied. So by looking at what you indicated, I already know you're within our range. So when I call you, I'm telling you this is our range. This is what we are charging. So that one helps the company to keep its confidentiality in terms of what they pay, and also it helps you understand how much they pay. But it's sad that some organizations don't disclose that to you at that point, and in the end, it always hurts the organization. So my approach would be ensure that when you are an organization and you are advertising, ensure that you give room for the candidate to indicate their expected salary. Once they indicate the expected salary, while you're recruit knowing that that is what they expect. And if they're not within your budget, then do not even recruit them.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm seeing Rosie.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mine is a suggestion also to recruiters, because you go through maybe sequence of interviews. Maybe
Yes.
there's interview 1 or 2. Maybe you've gone to the second one, is when the issue of salary comes up, whereas previously nothing was mentioned. But when you quote maybe your salary, they feel you've overpriced yourself based on their budget. But here they are not ready to disclose their budget range so that you're able to negotiate. They just want a static figure.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say you're open to negotiation, they tell you, no, we want a figure. But they are keeping their figure very confidential, because I believe even recruiters, when they are engaged by a client gives a budget. So
Yeah.
they know the range which their client can stretch. But they have kept that card close to their chest. They don't want to disclose. It's like you're told it's a do or die thing. Give us this or not. So it leaves you in a dilemma, whether it's a friendly recruitment or it's a, I don't know how to place it, because you are left with no options. Like the way you are saying, you're open to negotiation. Yeah, because like me, I was approached by one recruiter, and she told me, when I said I'm within this range, the recruiter told me, no, I want a figure.
That's weird.
So when I mentioned a figure, they never came back to me.
Oh.
Yeah. Let me
That's it.
I also have such an experience. There's someone who had recommended me for a job as a senior HR officer. So the person who called me told me, yeah, like, you have been recommended by so and so. She has told us everything you can do for us. So right now, just quote how much you would want us to pay you. So I tried to ask them, like, let me come for interview first. Let me see the company, and then we can talk about the salary. But they said, no, just give us the amount that you want us to pay you. So when I quoted a figure, they said, okay, it's fine, we'll get back to you. And then they never got back.
Sadly, that's how the industry is. You'll find that okay, I would say that sometimes you find that we have many consultancies that are started not by HR professionals. It's just someone who knows that, okay, consultancy has money and I have access to certain organizations that I can get a tender to be recruiting for them. And then they come hire people who are not professionals. I've also experienced such a thing way back, whereby someone just told me, we've gotten your CV, and the job is paying this much. If we give you this job, will you pay us your first salary? That is what the conversation I had with this person. So I wondered, we've not even interviewed, we've not done anything. You're asking me. Basically, what they want to know is if I will accept that if they give me the job, then my first salary will go to them. So I told them, I can't do that because automatically they were not professional.
And that's manipulation.
Yes. So I totally knew that even the organization, if you find an organization recruiting with such a recruiter, then totally you need to understand that that organization is not the right organization. Because yes.
Daniel, if I can ask you a question.
Yes.
Maybe you're a professional recruiter, right?
Yes.
Why do you take somebody through the first interview? Maybe virtual. You take somebody through the second interview. The same thing, the third interview. Now, this particular person has gone through all these particular stages. It reaches the last stage where he's supposed to meet with the employer, the source-called employer in court, whom you have not even seen. Then at that point is when this particular person is being told to disclose the salary that he wants. And once he discloses the salary that he wants, he's told that now, Paul, we are not able to hire you. Why have you taken me through all the interview sessions, three or four stages, until you have done even the background check without even my consent?
Exactly.
Agreed. That is very wrong because that salary is always the breaking point. So that's why I always insist as a recruiter, ensure that you've indicated the salary range so that whoever you are taking through the recruitment process, the issue of salary does not come in even at the end. Because if the salary is not within range and you've taken this person through this process, automatically, if the salary is not in line with the organization, then you won't take this person. And that's where I disagree with some recruiters, because you need to take away the things that are sort of obstacles at the end, because salary would be one of them. If you're able to identify that this person is within our range, then it makes it very easy for you to continue with the rest of the process. I don't know why most organizations feel like the salary bit is the competitive edge, yet it is not. If you ask me, in nowadays, in this current situation, current environment, salary is not a competitive edge. There is more to retaining staff or attracting staff than salary. Because like right now, if you are given a job, let's say, maybe to ask Vivian, if you are given to choose between a job that pays you 100K and you're going to work every day, and a job that pays you maybe 90K and you work only remotely, which one would you go for?
The remote job.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at, whereby people feel like salary is the game changer, that you have to hide this, which is not the case. Where we're headed, there are certain other benefits that are more important to the employee going forward. So
I think, Danny, I feel like from your argument,
yes,
I think the concept on needs and wants from a company's point and an individual's point is different.
yeah,
Because a company will negotiate its salary because they want to reduce cost, the expense part of it. Yet for me, again, the company expects me to do good, but they want to pay me less. You see that convoluted situation where you want more, but the company is trying to reduce on cost. And I think why the question of salary will fail a million people.
And if I were to
They act like you need them more, like you need them more. They don't need you. Why place us like that? Because you're trying to strike a balance that you need me, I need you, so that we work together. But you cannot, even that contract between an individual and a company, it's more of a marriage contract, right? Like we're entering into a marriage. So you cannot show me simply because you're my husband, I need you more, you don't need me. Why don't we strike a balance in the industry? Why not? Why? So that we can make the issue of salary simpler. Because a million people, including I here, I fell around that question. Yeah. Why are my needs not your needs? Why don't you pay me my worth? I serve you your worth. There's balance with that. But you find the concept is different because the core aim of a business is to make profit. So they want to reduce their cost when they are paying you, but they expect you to serve them more. You've heard a guy say they were told, I think it's you who said you were told to give them your first salary. So they're telling you, you're supposed to give us equal income like what we are paying you. So why don't we make the whole industry easier?
Yeah.
By making employees feel worthy, they are worth working with your company, and also company feeling that they hired the worth person, like we can give them back what they are worth.
Agreed. And just to also add on that, now we're having many organizations coming to Kenya that are professional in this sense. Maybe we can say that that is where we've been, but we can't lose hope because we have very many good organizations that totally take care of their staff within the country, and it's only a matter of time before you can get to that particular organization. The truth is, this is where we are at as an industry, as the country, but eventually that is where we need to get to. So because even for my case where I was asked, please, will give us the first salary, that was a recruiter. So if you ask me, in terms of recruitment, do you know the recruiter is at a loss if they charge you less?
Charge me less.
If, let's say, the salary range is between 100 and 300, and the recruiter negotiates for 100, in most cases, the recruiter is losing because they are always given a percentage of your salary. So if your salary is less, means the recruiter is going to get less.
Okay.
Yes. So that is a good recruiter. If that recruiter has that kind of arrangement, then they'll definitely give you a good bargain. But if the recruiter are being paid, let's say, a standard fee, that whether or not they recruit, they'll be paid a certain amount, then that is the kind of recruiter who would be able to ensure that they reduce cost on behalf of the organization. So it's more of a balance and be able to understand the established recruiters within the industry. But that should not maybe discourage us. We need to still continue and do our part in terms of what is expected, and eventually we will get to the organizations that we deserve.
For me, so far, being in the industry, I just feel like we need an in-depth and rigorous disruption in HR. There's a lot.
Yeah,
and you don't even work independently, you're also working for a company, so you have to follow what the company says. But I feel I'm right here trying to think a lot of factors that would contribute to an employer behaving that way. And somehow, when you understand, like for you're operating this business, the Danny Dell, so you'll argue from a point of being an entrepreneur, and from this other end, I'm just an employee. So sometimes you find there are those crashing thoughts that won't balance anyway. It's not easy, because when you view a business like a business and an individual like an individual, there's a lot that crashes. There's a lot of issues that cannot easily balance, according to me.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. And finding that balance, it's an industry that has been there for a while, and it's like, yes, we want to change, but it takes a long time to change.
Of course, because they use the old norms.
Yes.
Because we are used to the old ways. Change.
Yes. And the only time, like things like working from home, you found that due to COVID, many organizations were forced to do that. Virtual meetings, most organizations were not doing that. So eventually, you'll find that such things will come into play the moment organizations are able to outgrow the norms that
are already in existence.
Yeah. I'm seeing Vicky. You've raised your hand. Vicky?
Hi. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, I apologize for the slight delay.
No problem.
I've been listening to the conversation,
Yes.
and yeah, and I'm thinking that as professional HR practitioners,
Mhm.
I think we also need to encourage our organizations to come up with salary scales and grading structures, and looking at them comprehensively. So we're both looking at both the salaries and the benefits, so that this issue of having to ask people what their prior salaries were is managed more professionally.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because if I'm going to peg a new person's salary on what they were earning before, then clearly I'm going to have a group of employees whose salaries are very scattered, because it's all depending on where they've come from. And that's not a healthy working environment. If I was in a school, for example, and I was a teacher, and I found out that, say I teach grade 5, and I found out that my colleague is earning 90,000, but I'm earning 45, because where I came from before, I was earning 30, and therefore 45 was an increment for me. But my colleague came from a school where he was earning 60, and therefore 90 was good. I'll be deflated and demotivated.
Exactly.
But if there was a structure that says anybody coming in with, let's say, a bachelor's degree is TSC registered, with 0 to 5 years or 1 to 5 years of experience, we will pay them this, and these are the benefits that go with that. How many days leave, how many, all of that. So that as we're recruiting, there's people will compare their salaries. We're all alive to that. True?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. So as professionals, I think we can help our organizations come up with, we can first of all benchmark and find out what are other people offering? And then where do we want to peg ourselves as an organization? Do we want to be in the 75th percentile, in the 90th percentile? And then even work on creating such a wonderful working environment that people just want to work for our organizations. It's not just about salary, it's a whole lot more. Trainings that we offer, how people relate with their supervisors, there's so much more. Maybe we offer lunch, plenty of parking for those that drive, etc., etc. So that we leave an organization that is healthy, that has a good working culture, where people can thrive and grow, and salary therefore becomes a very small thing in the wider scheme of things. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Vicky. I agree with you totally, because in
Yeah.
most organizations you'll find that I understand how organizations come about, whereby you find it's a founder starting an organization and they never put in mind anything to do with HR until much later. So they don't factor in certain things that are needed, or they don't see the need because certain things have been done in a certain way for the longest time. And in most cases, you find that when they implement certain things, it's more of compliance than totally wanting to implement these things for the benefit of the organization. Let's say things like policies and processes. You'll find that an organization does not have HR policies until they get into a jam with maybe the law that now they are required to have policies and processes. So it's something that can, as professionals, we need to, while we're in that space, in whichever organizations we are at, we can try champion that change to ensure that organizations totally have a shift to be able to provide good environments for our employees. And as Vicky has mentioned, the truth is, in other organizations outside the country, salary is normally not the main thing. They always go for the environment, because it is the environment that will keep this particular, that it is the environment that will ensure that we retain our staff at the end of the day. yes, you can pay someone well, but if they are always sickly because of the organization and the toxic environment within the organization, when they get a good employer that provides maybe even a similar range to what they're earning, but they have a good environment, working environment, they will leave. So at the end of the day, we need to focus on also the environment that we're offering as a balance. And in most cases, it doesn't take much. It's just being innovative and providing certain solutions within. I'm seeing Paul.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. I want just to ask whatever Vicky has mentioned and Vivian, all
Yes.
of these things are coming to be the facts. But now you see, we are dealing
Yes.
with some of the organizations that they're only looking for the profit maximization rather than the employees' engagement or the employees' well-being. And some of the contributors to this particular organization to do such is some of us as the HR professions, we are in these particular offices, but we are looking at to make that particular employee suffer more than that, more than making the employees grow. And the reason why I'm mentioning this because I'm an affected person and I passed through this through an HR who was not ready to listen to what I was to mention to him, because I believe I'm in a millennial generation and he was in another, I don't know which type of generation he was, because she was older than I. So when I try to mention to this particular child that this organization is good, yes, we need to do these 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe to have employees engagements once in a week. Let us get to know how these employees feel. Let us get to know what these employees want for us to do so that at least they can feel part of the organization. Daniel, I'm telling you, it was my first week of employment. The first week, I've noticed several incidents that the employees are complaining. They really feel like they want somebody to speak to, but they cannot get. Simply because the HR has stayed in a place where she feels like nobody can tell her anything, and she's the one to take the overall charge of the organization. The HR is earning a 6-figure salary. You, as an assistant HR, you're earning a 4-figure salary or something of the sort. So you feel like this particular HR, there are some of the HR, even if we try as the junior HR who are joining the organization, to give at least an insight of a different knowledge to bring people together to understand what is supposed to be done, it will still be a hurdle for some of us. Like for instance, Paul, now I enter into an organization and I realize there is something that I need to do. I need to go to my senior and tell him this is something that we need to do. If the senior will accept, then I will feel like this is an organization to be. But now I go to an organization where I tell my senior this is what we need to do. Then the senior scrubs me off. How do you feel like I'm going to work in that particular organization? Basically, the mental health of the HRs and the employees are more important rather than even the salary. As Vicky mentioned it, even if we are going to have a very good organization, we are being paid well, yes, fine. But now my mental health, I don't even have anything to express to somebody. And that's what made me, Daniel, to quit my first job because of the first one, I was discriminated in the salary. Second one, there is no anyone that as a junior HR you can express your view to. Third one, it is very hostile environment for an HR to operate for. So I really don't know, as a field of HR professionals, who will ever listen to the HR, especially the junior ones, if the senior ones are suppressing these who are coming in to join the organization. It's quite need a lot to be done, and especially Vivian mentioned this and Vicky also mentioned this. If we can come together and make things work for the organization, it will for the betterment of this particular organization. But if the HR themselves are the ones trying to suppress the juniors in the organization, then cannot be able to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that, Paul. I think Vicky has a response. Vicky?
Yes. Again, top of my head thoughts for
Yes.
Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, my advice is, having been a practitioner for many years, when you join an organization and you're still new, I think you want to take some time to find out how things work and make your observations. So if you're coming to the head of the HR in a week and telling them this is not working, employees are complaining about this is inefficient, you might not get the reception you desire, only because it may come across to the HR person like, oh, you think we've been doing nothing, eh? So it's you who's now come and show us what we haven't been doing. I think maybe a better way to do it after you've stayed for about, say, 3 to 6 months is to come and say, hey, I'd like to make a suggestion that I think will give us some insights into what's going on within the organization. Perhaps we can do an employee satisfaction survey, because some of these people like to get factual information, not someone's comments, not grapevine information. When it's factual and you present it as a problem with a solution, not just I'm hearing complaints about this or people are unhappy about that, but you've taken the time to actually do a survey, you have done the analysis, you've come up with a proposal, you have, something that's comprehensive, then I think it's bound to, well, I think it would be better received than making it look like the ones who've been there have been asleep on the job. You know what I mean? I think you raise a valid point, because obviously you'll see inefficiencies with a fresh eye because you're the new person. But I think how you present it is as important as what you're trying to, as the observations that you're making. So let's have a little wisdom and tact in the way we also do things. Thank you.
Yeah, I concur
Okay,
with
Daniel.
Yes, Paul.
Daniel, let me just answer Vicky. I didn't mention that it is something that I just do it immediately when I reported to that particular organization. It is something that somebody tells you, can you do this particular study? You have done it for a month. I stayed in that organization for 2 months. And because of the mental health, that anything that I give them after they have given me a task, that you handle this particular issue, you definitely you need to present it to your senior. You present what you have given, what you have studied, and what you have understood, and what you have gotten through the study that you have done. That is what I mean. When you present it to the senior, this is what I've been given to do, and this is what I'm presenting to you. Immediately you are presenting. Presentation is not being told this is something that cannot happen because of, and you have been tasked. Assume Vivian and Vicky, nimekuambia tu tafadhali, can you check for us what is happening in the payroll? Why is it that there is discrepancies in the payroll? You have done your study. You are giving now your presentation. During your presentation, when you are giving your presentation, is when you are being shut up. You are told this is not going to work. This is not going to, and it's a study that you have just gone through their documentation. You have not even interacted with anybody. You have just done what, like for example, somebody tells you, can you give us the reasons as why employees are exiting? So you need to go back to the exit interviews and find out what the employees gave us the reason for why they are exiting. When you give back now the feedback to the senior HR, it's like you have not been doing anything. That is what I meant. It knows that you're just coming immediately and you start to give out your perceptions. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to answer Paul and also tell Paul some few things that a CEO, a friend of mine who is a CEO, told me. Anytime you get into a new company, please tiptoe, just like Vicky told you. Secondly, things you cannot change an organization in a day or by your contribution. And let me tell you, this takes me back to a place where you think of an HR. Much of like the reaction of your HR, Paul, I would tell you she didn't react from a point of I'm older than you, I'm more experienced than you, or your contribution is irrelevant. An HR first has no seat at the board. That should be, yeah. So we are trying to push for that, having a space or a chair at the board. Something else, how an organization operates. If you go back to corporate governance, Paul, you'll understand how an organization operates clearly. much of the decision making is done at the corporate governance. Even Daniel, with his recruiting company, can tell you he listens most when he approaches a company more than he would talk. So I think the best thing for you, Paul, understand that there's a limit to what you can say within an organization, because first you have to understand how that organization operates right from the corporate governance. And for you being an HR assistant, or maybe if you have an HR director, that is the person who would appear maybe at the board, but most of the HRs, we don't have a seat at the board. So much of the discussion that was done up there, the CEO will just come and put pressure on everyone, but this is what is expected. So sometimes the research you will do and how much and the zeal you have to change the organization might sound very irrelevant, because it's the board that says in a company. That one should always be in your thoughts. I know most of us, depending now that we are existing in a toxic environment, you would like to change a situation, but how mighty are you? Do you have the power to? Only the top leadership can change how an organization operates. If they cannot detect the whole problem within the whole organization. In most cases, the board assumes that's an individual issue. My dear, that's how the board assumes. Unless it's affecting the flow of income or productivity or issues with production units, quality analysis and all those, when it comes to individual issues, companies don't take that as a company issue. They take it as an individual issue. So they'll just assume, you left the company simply because 1, 2, 3 things. Those are your issues. 300 of other employees were left. So sometimes just seek to understand how a company operates. And with a good example, you can see this is Danny Dell company. Anytime Daniel presents himself in a certain company and he's anatafuta unga huko, much of the time Daniel will stay silent, not talk, because that there's a way that company operates. So it's either we are collaborating or accommodating one another. So that, Paul, don't try too much to change an organization. The culture of an organization is set by the corporate governance there. And if you're not part of it, you don't have the sword to change the company. So that's how you're told. If it's toxic, please exit. Look for somewhere else, because you cannot, it's very difficult to change an organization. Very difficult. So maybe your HR reacted like that because there's something she knows that you don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much,
Okay,
Vivian.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Vivian.
you,
Thank you, Paul. I
Vivian
think
and Vicky.
the discussion has taken quite a different turn. I think we can have we can never exhaust this discussion at this moment in time. So maybe I can give Juliana. I see you have a raised hand. Juliana.
Hi everyone. I think most of the things I wanted to say have been addressed, but I'd like to also contribute. Most of the time when we go for a job, instead of us having to rush to leave the job because it's not conforming to what we believe in, sometimes take a moment. Even in that chaos, you normally tend to learn in the midst of that chaos. All of the lessons that I have learned in HR, some of the most difficult situations I have dealt with or I have encountered have been during the worst of times in my career. So, but that has been what has built me. But also, I have tried since I became a HR manager. I've tried to be a better HR to my juniors. So I think as HRs who are in positions, let's try and not be the toxic ones in an organization. And I'm not saying sometimes we don't do it intentionally. I make it my business. I'm a firm believer we all have our place in this world. And if my juniors want to learn something from payroll, I'm a 360 HR. There's no part of HR I can't do. Through my experience, I've learned all those things. So if my junior comes and tells me I want to learn how to do recruitment or I want to learn payroll, I teach them, because I know the faster they learn, the better for me it will be for me to move to the next level as they move to the level that I am in. So as much as we should try and be sober as HRs. So when you're told something, don't react to it. if you can't if you feel like you want to react to it, just give yourself a moment, just tell them, let me think about it and then I'll get back. Think soberly about the situations. I think I felt sad because we are HRs and we are bashing HRs because our worst experiences, starting with me, I had one of the worst bosses in this world. I had a head of HR who would look at me to my face and tell me they hate me, not for anything, but because I couldn't dance to her tune or to his tune. And I learned, I knew, okay, this person is my boss. So I learned to stay in my lane. Was that boss toxic? Oh, the worst I've ever experienced, but in HR. But also, I've had really good bosses in HR, bosses who sat me down and told me, this is what you need to learn. And that's where I got my policy from. Because if somebody didn't teach me, I wouldn't have learned. So let's try as much as possible. Let's not feel like we are being threatened when a junior says, I want to learn what you're doing. The sooner they learn, the better for you. So you're able to even move to the next level. And when you look back and you have like 5-10 people telling you, oh, I learned this because of you, that's really encouraging. I have made it my business in the last 4 years as a senior manager to ensure that I teach as much as I can, because I think that's what we all are looking for to, because if somebody didn't teach you, you wouldn't have learned. So let's try and be the safe place for other people. I tell people, even my colleagues, every department, by the time you're getting to HR, it's not because I came looking for you, somebody brought you to my office. We have conversations. Don't be the headmistress or the principal people see and start running. Be the safest place. Like when somebody is going through something, they come to you. So my point is this: let's, as HRs, let's not feel threatened. Let's try and be sober about stuff. Let's stop being reactive. Let's just listen. If you can't answer immediately, just go somewhere and then come back later and respond to that person. Because yeah, I felt sad every time when I had people bashing HR, even during interviews and all that. It's really sad. And for Vicky, thank you very much. One of the easiest places I ever worked was a place where there was a payment structure, a salary structure. When somebody came in, they knew they were going to get this after 1 year, after you get this. And it was the easiest place I ever worked. Everywhere else, we fight. What do you want? I want to earn this. Okay, that's my point. I think I've talked too much, but thank you very much to everyone who's participating today.
Yeah, thank you, Juliana, and thank you for the participation. I know this topic can easily digress from the main topic of the day. Probably you can organize another session to have that discussion, because I'm seeing some other questions we've not answered in the chat. So I would request you allow me to refocus back to these questions. So I'm seeing, Paul, you had asked what happened when you have done the interview last day. Okay, I think this one we've answered. Then also, when you send a CV, are you supposed to write something like salutations, something? There's this bit, Beverly, you can answer Eddie.
Is this the question on, am I at liberty not to disclose my current salary?
No, there's this one. Also, when asked to send CV only, are you supposed to write something like salutations? So maybe let me answer this. So I think it's E-Day. When you're asked to just send your CV, you can just draft a brief email to go with it. It's always good to just, of course, you'll just do a basic email just to introduce briefly yourself and just refer to the fact that they had requested you to send the CV if it's someone that you know, or if you're just applying. There are many ways to draft that, but ensure that it's just a simple enough email that addresses the reason why you are writing to the organization. I hope that answers the question. I don't think we have any other question in the chat. I don't know whether we have any other question.
Yes, Jose, there's a question from Regina.
Yes.
she's asking if I'm applying for a job online,
Yes.
say sending an email, and the advert says send your CV. Should I attach my academic documents?
I would say no. In my opinion, academic documents, you can send them later or you can come with them during the interview. In most cases, you'll find recruiters asking you to send when you're coming for the interview, you can come with maybe original copies for verification. So I would advise, I normally see many people do this. So you are asked to send your CV. So you find someone attaching so many documents. Those are your confidential documents. So you wouldn't want them to be at every employer, and you never know with this time and age. You've had so many people in the public service are not having legit certificates, so you might never know where you are. One of your whether you are being impersonated out there. So I would advise, if you're asked, in most cases, what will be needed is just a cover letter and a CV, and probably a link to your LinkedIn. That should be enough. The rest can be handled at interview level. So let's avoid sending our scanned documents to the interviewer unless maybe requested. But in most cases, you'd find only government that does that, in my experience, whereby you're requested to attach all your certificates, and that is if you're looking for a government job. But in most cases, you'll find just a CV and a cover letter, and to some extent your LinkedIn profile. Especially right now, most employers are asking for the LinkedIn profile. So you'll find that that is where they'll actually go to check on your qualifications. Then if you're successful and you're shortlisted, that is when you can be requested to come with original copies of your documents just for verification purposes. I hope that answers Regina. Any other question?
Yeah. If I can just add on that.
Yes.
Yeah, so Regina, it's important to always follow the instructions that are there at the bottom of the advert, the instructions on how to apply for the job. Yeah, because in some instances, if you do something which the recruiter did not request you to do, it might disqualify you. Yeah, so we always have some instructions at the bottom of every job advert. They will say if they need the CV and cover letter as one document, they will say it there. If they need you to send through the email, they will say it there. If they need your documents, they will say it there. So just follow the instructions. Yeah, and you'll be okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me allow me to share this. Just an example of such where you may not be required as quite to. I don't know whether you can see my screen.
Wait, it says my screen is still visible.
Okay, just are you able to view mine?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a job that yes, they require a CV, but they do not require a cover letter. So on matters instruction, here you're told your CV should be no more than 2 pages, so you should ensure that is the case. Then, of course, they want a short introduction of why they should choose you. And here they've indicated that we do not require a cover letter for this position. So they've given you an option. You can use other more creative means like a video presentation, photos of you to convince us why we should choose you. Please share a link to the video and any presentations that you have. So this is an option. It's just instructions that you've been given. So one might, since they don't require a cover letter, one might opt not to go with the cover letter. The other would still do all. But my advice would be, if you could go with the second option, where you can do a video, because cover letters are being are monotonous. So if you have an option to do a video, ensure that you do a nice video that totally is able to project who you are and why they should hire you, and also ensure that it is accessible to the recruiter. Yes, you might have a link, but you can even test it and ensure that you send it to a colleague to ensure that it is visible on the other end. So if you're using things like OneDrive, like Google Drive, and other shared spaces, you need to ensure that it is visible on the other side, so that you might not lose the job and you wonder why you did everything right, and maybe on the other end it's just your link that is not opening on the other end. So ensure that you've tested it and it works. I think that was it. I just needed to show you that option, that advert. I don't know whether we have any other question. We have like 10 minutes to go. Any other question? I know we have a number of people on the call. Any question to do with the topic of the day?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sometimes during interview, encounter candidates who are demonstrative in this sense that when they're talking, they must, their hands are also talking as their mouth is talking. So do you view it as, is it, okay, considering you aren't a professional, is it all right? Or, there are people who are really demonstrative, especially with their hands. When they're talking, their hands are in the air, I don't know whether it's bad or good. Or
it depends. It depends. It depends, because if that is how, it depends on also what kind of things you are demonstrating, what kind of message you're sending by whatever demonstrations you are making with your hands. It might come out as nervous, it might not, it might come out as confident. So it depends on what your body language is. Because if you're all over the place, then of course it will come out as if you are a nervous person. So it's just about, I think practice helps, so that you try and understand at what point are you able to demonstrate. Because you can't also come for an interview and just sit and your hands are just in one place. You should always try and also move your body language. Use your body to help you explain what, to be able to explain your concept. If you've been asked about maybe something that would need you to also use your hands, for me on my end, I wouldn't quite hold it against you unless it's very inappropriate. If you're using inappropriate gestures, or if you are you just come out as nervous.
Daniel, I mean people who you've seen sign language interpreters, right?
Okay.
Now, as they talk, they're talking, but they're also now showing you like a language interpreter. Like, is it lack of confidence that you feel you cannot be heard by your words? You cannot be heard, you must demonstrate. Do you feel like there's a case of that person being inconfident, or are they confident? The people who really demonstrate in everything.
I'm trying to understand your question. Is it someone who needs help to explain? Someone who needs...
No, like maybe you've never come across these people, Daniel, who will... I'm talking to you right now, right?
Yes.
But I'm demonstrating already. What are you demonstrating? Because I feel like it's not a situation that calls for demonstration, but already the candidates, in every question, they're just demonstrative. As they talk, their hands are also talking. That's
okay.
what.
Okay, I'm not...
Hosea, maybe I can try to explain that.
Yes.
There are people who talk with when they're gesturing, like they can't be able to put their hands together. You see, you encourage when you're having an interview, you put your hands together and place them on the table. but there are people who can't keep their hands together. So when they're talking, they're gesturing with their hands. Vivian, I think that's what that's what you mean, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is very excessive, actually.
Mm.
How do you deal with such a person? Because it's like a habit that is already in them to demonstrate. Do we view them as confident people, or we just assume that those hands just played in the air and hire the person? Because sometimes I actually feel like this person is either not confident, like you have to convince me deeply using your gestures, and you're using words at the same time. Sometimes you just need to open your mouth and convince someone something, but this person is demonstrative all through.
I personally wouldn't hold anything against them as long as they're making sense. Yeah, for me, if they're making sense and that is how they feel comfortable, because remember, this person, they can't change. If that is their habit, they've had that habit for the longest time. It's part of them. So if they're asked to conform, then they'll even be more nervous and they'll totally fail at the interview stage. So as long as it's not affecting, because we all have biases as human beings and as interviewers. So the main thing we need to understand is our bias. What are the biases that we have? Like, I'll give you an example. I don't know whether you heard of the halo effect and halo effect. So you find that if let's say you are in an interview, you've gone into an interview and you find that there's someone, when you go through their qualifications, you find that maybe they went to a similar school that you were in. Then you'll find subconsciously, you'll have a bit of more interest in this person. Even if you don't know it, you'll find that you have a bit more interest. So the main thing is to understand your biases, so that when you get into such a situation, you're not maybe against this person because of their personality or their nature. You need to find it in yourself to go over that, because at the end of the day, if they're talking sense and it makes sense and they're the right candidate, then I don't think you should victimize them for that, because it's more of personality and nature as at that point. But of course, if you are you have such a, that's how you are, you can still also find ways of maybe practicing on how you can still approach interviews, and as you practice, you can also reduce on that, if because it might affect your chances. But if that is the case and you are in an interview, I would look at it from the perspective of the interviewer. You should go above your biases towards it, and just look at the content in terms of this particular individual. Are they the right person? Because if, let's say, it's an IT job, this person is coming in to do maybe a software engineering job, that particular demonstration won't hinder his work at the end of the day. You just need to look at what he has in terms of qualifications and experience, and whether they're able to do the job, and go above our biases as HR and as people to be able to get the right candidate in.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, for attending the session today. Thank you so much, Hosea of Denidel. Yeah, so there's on the chat, Paul is saying, Paul is requesting for your contact, Hosea. I think you're the one he's referring to as Daniel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll share.
Yeah.
You just share my contact on
the chat. Okay. Yeah, I've also shared the link to our WhatsApp group. You can join, and so that you can get our latest updates, and also you can suggest topics for next Saturday and the other subsequent Saturdays. Yeah, and then I've also shared the link to our Google form. Yeah, you can submit your details so that we can tailor make career solutions specific for you. Yeah. So besides today's session, at Denidel we offer CV writing services, career coaching, LinkedIn optimization, interview preparation session, and team building services. Yes, and team building services and trainings, corporate trainings. So if you need any of those services, kindly contact us. Kindly contact us. If your workplace is toxic, like the one Paul was describing, you definitely need a team building. Yeah, it will make things much, much, much easier for you. Yeah, it will create workplace friendships. Yeah. So join the WhatsApp group and let's continue with the conversation. Yeah. Hopeful to see you next Saturday. Yeah. My name is Beverly. So you're free to drop off the call. You're free to drop off the call. Please join the WhatsApp group so that we can continue with the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Juliana. Thank you, John.